Welcome back to Consider This. Melissa and Sharad here with you tonight. Here's what we want you to consider this evening. Accent bias and how we can minimize this specific discrimination, especially in the workplace. So over the weekend, I think in the last few days, there was a tweet by a young man named Malik Faisal, which had gone viral on social media. He had apparently been turned down for an internship in KL because of his Sabah accent. Did you see that, Sharad?
I did indeed, Melissa. And you know what I think surprised me was the tone that Malik takes in his missive to the public, which suggests that even he wasn't quite sure whether this was a form of discrimination.
Well, he seemed to accept it.
Yeah, he seemed to have internalized this idea that because of his accent, he was not suited for an internship, which is quite extraordinary because you think an internship is a process of learning and changing. And even if you subscribe to those values of some sort of standard accent, then the question is, why not help that kid achieve that? Why deny him an internship?
Well, okay, so let's just make the difference between the accent and communication skills, because I think that was a lot of the chatter that was happening on social media. There seems to be the confusion of the two. And I think, to be honest with you, I think English only and language fluency policies can be discriminatory in most cases. However, there are specific cases where perhaps there are legitimate reasons for requiring that a candidate have proficiency in a certain language, perhaps communication to colleagues or to the customers, right? There are specific cases, but all in all, I think accent bias is this invisible bias that we have to deal with.
Yeah, and so the response Malik gets from this prospective the company that he wanted to work for or intern under said that you should change the way you speak so it doesn't sound like you come from East Malaysia, as if there's a problem with coming from East Malaysia. And I think many of us in the peninsula maybe not even aware of these forms of discrimination. I mean, it might even apply to people coming from the east coast of the peninsula. How many people have been discriminated against because they have an accent that signals they're not from Kuala Lumpur, they're not apparently of the right class of people?
Or they're not, educated overseas with a foreign accent. I really wonder whether this is an invisible bias that we all have. And sometimes in the workplace, it becomes very damaging because unless you are trained, especially those who sit on recruitment panels, to acknowledge that you have a bias and to fight against this bias.
Yeah, so the question is, I mean, for the companies, to what extent do they want to embrace diversity and have actually quite a range of sounds and accents in their own, workplaces? The other, of course, is for the young people who are facing this, or young or otherwise, how do you respond?
Right.
If there's no legislation that supports you in identifying this as a form of discrimination, what should you do?
Well, maybe I would begin with asking, perhaps asking if the response from the recruitment officer had been that you could, perhaps you could polish your communication skills, especially your pronunciation, so it would not be obvious that you come for East Malaysia. I would ask specifically, why is that the reason that I did not get the internship?
Absolutely right. So put it back to the employer.
Yes,
but this is somehow not the most sound reason for denying you an internship.
For sure. All right, that's all the time we have on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melissa Idris, with me Sharad Kuttan, signing off for tonight. Thank you for watching and good evening.